Welcome back to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor, and I'm joined today by Amanda Rose. Let me tell you a little bit about this wonderful woman. Amanda Rose, #BossLady, is an advocate for women in business, a media commentator, keynote speaker, and an entrepreneur, appearing weekly on Sunrise and Sky News and contributing regularly to the Australian Financial Review, the Daily Telegraph and Smart Company. Amanda applies compassionate, critical thinking to disseminate complex issues affecting everyday Australians. Now, this is the reason that she's here today, because I saw her. Amanda is the founder and CEO of Entrepreneurial and Small Business Women Australia and the founder of Western Sydney Women. Gotta love that. She founded and sold Business Women Media, the first platform of its kind to advocate for small business women. As a mentor and advisor to women in executive roles and SMEs, Amanda is known for her strategic, practical approach to leadership and business. Her qualifications include a BBA in Marketing and Psychology from Macquarie University, a Master's in Communication Management from UTS, and a Graduate Certificate in Educational Leadership from Macquarie University. And currently, she's studying for a Master's degree in Business Law at Sydney University. Without further ado, welcome, Amanda.
Hello. Wow, what an intro.
It certainly is. But, you know, I recently saw you on Sky and I just thought, wow, this woman is amazing. I have to have her on my podcast mainly because of your ability to clearly articulate and advocate for small business, because it's something that's very, very dear to my heart too. So tell me where this passion comes from.
I think it started actually really early on because I come from a small business family. Right. So everyone in my family, except my mum, who just supported everyone in their small business essentially, is a small business owner. And that's all I've really known until I went into the corporate world, and then I realised how that worked and then understood politics and so forth. But it was probably the last decade I realised that small businesses weren't being really represented and advocated for much at all. There was a lot of noise, a lot of photo opportunities, but not much action and not much legislative change. And then you think women in business, so women-owned enterprises, had nothing, very little. Because they have a different set of requirements and barriers and issues, and women are starting businesses faster than men. So they really do need to be advocated for. So I ended up kind of advocating for both.
Yes, absolutely. So what is it in particular, though, about small business that makes you so passionate? Besides your family legacy, the women aspect, what else is there?
I love small business owners. I don't know anyone that has met a small business owner and walked away and went, they are so greedy and so mean and so cruel, right? Like it's the heart of every community. They're the ones that let you leave early to go pick up your sick child. They're the ones that chip in when you've got a problem, you need help. They're the ones that are going to hold a birthday cake for you. They're the ones that hire local. They're the ones that support the community group when the soccer club comes and asks, can you please donate to us? That is small business. And when they're 97% of the businesses in Australia are small business and they employ 40% of the private workforce, this is a considerable amount of people. And they have been not only ignored, but in the last 3 years in particular, they have been suffocated, pushed out and ignored by the federal government.
So let's talk about that a little bit more, because that was really one of the reasons I wanted you on here, because of your expertise in the area and your advocacy. I mean, you've just alluded to it now. Small businesses have it tougher than ever before. I mean, along with red tape, compliance, taxation that would rival their corporate counterparts, they're also contending with a tighter market. So tell me about some more of the challenges that small business owners have today
Yes.
and why advocacy is so important for those small businesses.
So when you look at decisions by government, right, there is no lens being used, a small business lens, right, or even an SME lens. So when the Future Made in Australia Fund, which is an over $22 billion fund, and really you can only invest in batteries, wind farms and solar. So it's actually creating a false market false economy because you're forced into that. There's no mechanism to say that a proportion of that money has to go to a small business owner or an entrepreneur. And even if they do give money to large companies, like we're talking Shell Corp and people like that get money to buy batteries, there's no mechanism in place, because I don't mind people, I'm not against big business, but where's the mechanism to make sure that a percentage of what they spend has to go to a small business? Because you'll find in a lot of infrastructure joint ventures, when government or when companies are tendering for a big government infrastructure tender, they'll say 30% has to be local SMEs. Now, it's a bit tricky because medium's different to small,
right?
But at least there's some requirement. At the moment, there's none. And if we look at building women's careers, which was a $60 million investment for women to get into the construction space, which I've worked in for years and run programs in, the tier one component, there was $45 million allocated to that. But you could not, as a PTY Limited, as a small business operator specialising in that space, you weren't eligible to apply. You actually had to be big business and you had to partner with a union in order to get the money. So unions either directly got the funds or large businesses had to partner with a union to roll it out. Now, I have no problems with unions getting some money. I do have a problem that it's not shared across all groups in society, right? Because, some unions have a reputation of not treating women very well. And when you think about it, unions are often in this space, construction I'm not talking like nursing and teachers. In construction, male-dominated unions with male-dominant organisations are getting money to run female programs for a female-focused tender. So as a female small business owner, you weren't even eligible. So small businesses are not considered. If we think of right to disconnect, everyone's like, yes, I don't want my boss contacting me past 7 p.m. That's fantastic. If you're working for someone like Macquarie Bank and you need some regulation to make sure you have a life, but a small business owner, they're the ones that let you go home at 1 p.m. and do what you need to do and then contact you after 7. But if it's legislated that you can no longer do that informal flexibility, then small businesses won't hire the people that need the flexibility, which is young people, single mums in general, and older people.
Yeah, spot on. Well, I want to come to some of those. Don't want to call them minorities, but I want to come to that because that's where I'm very, very passionate. Tell me though, let's come back to some of those legislative conditions that they do keep certain people out. I mean, women and small businesses out. Why are you the only voice that I've ever heard talk about this? Why isn't the Minister for Small Business advocating for small business?
Oh, so the Minister for Small Business in the current federal Labor government, let's separate them from state, because state, in particular New South Wales, are very good with small business.
Okay.
So the federal Labor government, Small Business Minister, it's a tokenistic title. And what they do is they just grab any policy that they've got and they try and shape it and market it for a small business. Oh, this will help small business. So, Cyber Wardens program, they gave $24 million to an association to help with, your cyber security. But what people don't realise is they also changed the Privacy Act where when you're a small business under $3 million, you're exempt from the Privacy Act. You're no longer exempt. Right? So you could have your Google Sheets hacked or something could happen, you email a bunch of people you shouldn't have, you now can be heavily fined, right? So instead of an advocacy group pushing back and saying, hey, we don't agree with that, let's do a transition of the changes in the Privacy Act so they have got time to be prepared for that, they don't. And what they do is they essentially just buy off people. And I understand why some people don't speak out, because I had to make the choice that they won't give me a cent, right? They will not fund me personally or any of my businesses, or well, that's what I assume. If they get a soul, they might want to do that. But if they personally don't fund me, and I had to take that risk because I couldn't, I just could not say that I'm a true advocate and that I care about these people, whether it's the tradies, which I've pushed hard about them being protected, small business. I cannot stand up and say I'm an advocate and I care about these people and then stay silent when they're being absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
So that's why people stay silent, because they get cut off.
Yeah.
I know stories where their funding gets cut off because they don't support the government of the day.
So they've got a choice between their livelihood, which is what small businesses are usually all about, or they stand up and risk.
Well, and when you think about it, right, it's the current Labor federal government wants you reliant on them, right? They don't want anyone to earn their own money, pay their own way, and not need the government. And that is why so many things you have to rely on the government. So if they squeeze the small business sector so much, say, for example, in construction, which is the highest number of businesses going under, it's in construction and hospitality. Guess what? Guess who wins? Big business, right? And big business partner with unions. They just got $45 million to run programs. So they're literally eliminating competition for their big business mates. But then they accuse the coalition of being friends with the big business when they themselves are handing them money.
So, Amanda, I mean, when we look at small businesses, and you've talked there about, the flexibility that small business owners give their employees. We've talked about the fact that, 97% of small businesses, employ 40% of the privately owned, the private sector.
Private sector.
Yeah, the private sector. And we think about small businesses as those that women usually gravitate to because they give them, the flexibility that they otherwise don't get in larger organisations where they're part of the workforce. And you think about the migrant workforce as well, who come out here with a set of qualifications that perhaps aren't recognised in this country and then have to create or forge their way through. And, small business or opening a series of small businesses is their emancipation and their integration into Australian communities. You've done some wonderful work in this space for women in particular, which has been recognised and awarded. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you've done there?
Yep. So I found that there was what I call the missing middle when it comes to women, in particular women in Western Sydney. And you're right, a lot of migrant women have all these qualifications and nowhere to go and no one will hire them. And because employment service providers are there for, people on Centrelink looking for work, and they've got free programs to help them. But then after that, all the people that don't qualify for that, or those that are saying, okay, I want something different, they've got nowhere to go. And it's a massive shift between that and the corporate world, which is very scary, right? So it's another reason why we want small business, because small businesses hire women in particular and migrant women, in the community. But when they want to start a business, there's also the danger, again, a lot of programs are out there, a lot of government-funded programs give us false sense of security for these women, that all you need is a business plan and go through this 6-week course and you can start a business. And it's not true. And then they finish that, and then they go back onto Centrelink, right? So it's a sense of failure. Right. So I thought I need to make sure we do surveys, we evaluate, we find out where are the gaps and what can we do. And we did that for 10 years, and we change and evolve constantly. Like, who's missing out, right? And at the moment we've got one called Jobs of the Future that we're running, because it was, again, women with qualifications, but not the qualifications they need to get the jobs of the future in Western Sydney. So then we'll connect them to that. And confidence is a big issue. People are like, why can't you get a job? I'm like, I know, maybe because a recruiter laughed in your face, right? Which these stories come out. So we want them to feel comfortable and safe. But what I don't like are programs that are funded by government that aren't evaluated. Millions of dollars is being wasted in the not-for-profit sector, in particular, to help vulnerable communities. And to me, I think it's reckless, because if you put a woman through a program and then she's no better off, then she's going to feel like she's failed that program. So there needs to be an audit. And you've got a lot of executives earning a lot of money and taking them through programs that don't go anywhere. So that's why we exist. You know, we partner with the ones that we know are good, and we partner with organisations that we know care and willing to invest in key things, whether it's high school girls or women or starting a business, or even executive women that were completely neglected in Western Sydney.
Yes.
And then we put a room together, and every time we've had a guest, they turn to me and go, "Gee, Amanda, these women are amazing."
Yes.
I'm like, I know, right? And the men ignore them. And that's why I exist.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, Amanda, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the success stories, or even some of the statistics that have emerged out of you running those programs completely separately to any kind of government program?
So we get a minimum of a 90% confidence rating. So their confidence has increased. 90% of women say it's increased by 100%. Like, it's just insane, the confidence levels that our programs give them. But I'll give you a couple of success stories with, for example, we were the first to run a Western City Women in Aviation program, and a young girl, it was quite a while ago, and a young girl, and it went national, by the way, the government, we then ran it nationally. But from that, we met a girl that was in the program, wasn't sure what she wanted to do, connected her, went through the program, so forth. Then she was headhunted, right, for a role. So she was not feeling confident, not doing anything, headhunted for a role, ended up at one stage the chief drones officer for Transport New South Wales at like 24.
Wow.
Has since been headhunted again. I have another young girl, it's an aeronautical engineer, that got a Fulbright scholarship, and now she's overseas. So not only do we go through the connections and the resources and the confidence encouragement, we make sure we individually connect them to opportunities relevant to them or their relevant issues. So we had a woman from one of our programs for women over 50 that we ran, and she, like, you know, they were just, it was amazing program, because they were all like, I can never work again. But they ended up getting qualifications, building their confidence. And one lady got a job, and then 2 years later contacted me and said, we're employing more people. Can we employ from the group of your over 50s that you run? So I have a lot of people that come back. So we have this alumni. So they come back as mentors, or they come back and offer more jobs. We have Endeavour Energy that funded for a couple of years Our Future is Bright boot camps for STEM and trades for girls in Western Sydney that never considered, they didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
You know, because like for me, I was really good at physics and chemistry, but no one told me how you'd be a great engineer.
Right.
I was told go do graphic design.
Yeah.
Right. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. I did do it amongst other things.
Yeah.
But it was the fact that I now love the engineering side of things, right? Because I understand someone should have mentioned that to me. So we're trying to target people that have a gift in an area, or a passion and a positive attitude in an area, but they've missed out simply because of where they were born.
Yes. Yeah. That's outstanding, you know, and I'm really keen to hear another time. Unfortunately, we won't have time today, but what other states could be doing as well, because I know that your real focus is New South Wales, but you know, I mean, I'm from Victoria, and I think that there's a huge opportunity for similar programs to be rolled out, you know, nationwide, that are completely separate and that are far more grassroots level and far more targeted at
You're right. You nailed it. It needs to be grassroots. And you know what that requires? Effort.
Yes.
And effort seems to be missing in all programs, all conversations, and all policy.
Yeah, well, that's it. And I mean, the reason I've got you on is because, you know, my whole philosophy around the sales revolution is about that intersection between business and community. And I really don't think that you can, especially with small business, but even with larger businesses, when you see yourself as part of the community and there's it's almost difficult to tell where one begins and the other sort of starts. That's where you get programs like yours happening, where, you know, there's just that ongoing osmotic relationship between, you know, from one to the other.
That's right. It's true. And that's the thing. And there are a lot of big businesses out there that do really good work. And I don't like the demonisation of big business when it's actually up to the government to put in mechanism and legislation to help the SME community. And because big businesses do support small business in a lot of ways and the community, but it's actually up to the government. And we forget that. Just because they promise the world, regardless of which side of politics get in, just because they promise you something doesn't mean you're going to get anything.
No, I know. Isn't it funny though? I mean, I don't know how many times we need to go back to the well knowing that it's dry with those promises, because I think that we're still captivated by this belief that government will come to the rescue. And the truth is that we need to be our own white knights. We need to come in and rescue
100%.
ourselves. Yeah.
But the current government doesn't want that, because then you won't rely on them. Right? And the thing is that if you're promised a bunch of things and you're in a desperate situation, and it's just like a relationship, if you start conditioning yourself to keep giving third, fourth, 500 chances to someone who keeps promising you, but deep down you really, really want them to work out, you really want this to work out, but it won't. You've got to look at actions. You've got to look at results. And it's the hardest thing to do is to face reality in life and make decisions accordingly.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Now, we've talked about the tightening conditions for small business owners, and a lot of the listeners will be small business owners. What insights can you share with those people who are listening so that they can remain competitive and, in spite of everything that's going on, continue to grow and prosper?
Yes, a couple of things. I have a saying, it says follow the money. Right. So always look of, say, the government, state or federal, what are they investing in? Right. So when I talked about the future made in Australia and all that money going to big business, find out how you can help that business deliver on that particular tender that they've won.
What a great suggestion. Love that.
Yeah, so when I know tenders are going out in certain spaces, I will contact them, because it might be like 3 groups of joint ventures competing with each other. I will contact them all and say, can I work on your tender with you? This is what I specialise in, right? And I've gotten work that way. Or it could be they need catering for that particular space. It could be a lot of people think, oh, but that's not for me. No, think outside the box, right? If you think of one particular tender, there are so many requirements that they need within that, from bricklaying or from catering or from AI assisted or corporate training, management, project work, whatever it is. So follow the money. And state government's a bit more hands-on. Meet with them, contact them. How can you be considered for approach to tenders? Work with other organisations in the commercial space as well, and say, where's the money being invested? Like, everyone talks about AI. What can you do in that space? Or if they talk about construction, what can you do in that space? Because you think of a construction company, you might be a bookkeeper, and you think, well, how can I work in that? Well, they need a bookkeeper, right? So look outside the box, but find out where the money is going. Look at the businesses that are doing well and find a way that you can help them. Remember, they have a supply chain. Everyone has a supply chain. I do, you do, everyone does. We've got to hire people all the time. We're going to buy things all the time. How can you get yourself into that supply chain, right? And that's why we push women in procurement and the procurement channel, and we're building a database on that, because we want to make sure that businesses can come to us to say, we need a woman-owned business in this space. Can you help us? But on your own, you can go and find it.
Okay, so follow the money.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
And then follow the money, and also go back to basics.
Right.
Now is not the time to be extravagant, right?
Yep.
Cut, and when I mean back to basics and cut back also on your time. And I say this to women in workshops in general. Ladies, this is not a personal attack, but I know what you like, right? You don't like upsetting people. You hate saying no. We need to strengthen that no muscle, right? So when people are like, let's catch up for coffee. Why? Why catching? And there's nothing wrong with asking why. Like, if a bloke turns up to you and says, hey, can I take you on a date? Don't you want to know answer some questions before you say yes? Why would you waste 3 hours of your time, right? It's the same thing. Why? Is there a reason for that? Because there's 3 hours of your time you've just wasted on catch up because you don't want people to hate you because you're a people pleaser. You need to say things like, I'm actually at capacity at the moment, or could you send me more information? You should only be spending your time on things that are going to take you towards the goal that you have, and that goal in the next 3 years should be making a profit.
Yes.
So cutting the costs wherever you can cut them, and cutting costs means cutting out wasted time.
Yes.
Because if you save 5 hours or 10 hours a week from wasted time, then you can go and chase that money.
Yes.
And you can go and build relationships with people, and you can test new things in a very sensible way. But if you panic and you go out and catch up with people to feel good, but it's not doing anything for you,
yes,
you're going to be worse off.
Yep. Fantastic. That's great advice. Very, very practical. Amanda, before we wrap things up, what else would you like to say to the listeners?
Don't feel like a failure if your business isn't doing well at any particular time. We've had the hardest 3 years, and I've been around for a long time. I've been around during the global financial crisis, right? It is normal to be like that. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to get a casual part-time job behind the scenes to help boost your business if that's what you need. It's okay to say to someone that hey, do you have a contract? I'm looking for more work, and this is what I specialize in. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have a track record of doing well, straight out ask them. I actually just tell people I want to work with them rather than ask. But it's just that fact of there's no shame in that. This is business. This is what it's like. Don't, however, go on Facebook and go, OMG, my business is falling apart. Someone help me, because people will run screaming from you. What you want is, I'm ready to grow my business, or I've got openings. Reach out to people privately. What have you got? But there's no shame in not doing well, right? Don't give up. Keep chipping away. Use that entrepreneurial mindset to find other avenues to bring in revenue, and partner with people if you need to, and keep going. Fantastic.
Amanda, where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can go to amandarose.com.au. I share a lot on my Instagram, so It's at the Amanda Rose. So do stalk me on Instagram, and from that you'll be able to find Small Business Women Australia and Western Sydney Women.
Amazing. Amanda, I hope it's not our last conversation, certainly not on the podcast. I'd love to have you back sometime, but I know that it won't be our last conversation personally either. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, you've been listening to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard. And to find out how The Sales Doctor can help your organisation to transform its revenue, growth and profit, please email me at ingrid@thesalesdoctor.com.au. Visit us on our website at www.thesalesdoctor.com.au. I look forward to your company next episode. Bye for now.